You are listening to Crime Unraveled, a Buck Taylor novel by Chuck Morgan.
Chapter 45. Tina Welker had made good time on Cottonwood Pass Road until she got near the summit. Traffic had slowed almost to a standstill. There wasn't usually this much traffic on the road at this time of the morning, and she noticed all the emergency vehicles parked on the shoulder of the narrow road. She spotted an SUV in a field off the road. She figured it was some flatlander not used to driving on mountain roads, who wasn't paying attention on the dark, curvy road, and drove off the edge. She stopped as a deputy held up her hand and waited while an ambulance pulled onto the road and headed west with lights and sirens. Someone must have been hurt in the accident. Tina followed the ambulance at a safe distance and, once on Highway 82, turned and headed into town. She pulled into the parking lot for the Garfield County Sheriff's Office and parked in a visitor's space. She and the boys slid out of the SUV, walked across the lot and pushed open the front doors. As she stepped through the door, an alarm sounded, and the deputy behind the desk pulled his pistol and pointed it at her. "Hands where I can see them," he yelled. "On your knees." Two more deputies came through a side door with guns drawn. Tina had no idea what was happening, but fell to her knees. The boys did the same thing. With two deputies holding guns, the third deputy holstered her weapon and stepped up to Tina. "Hands on your head," she said. Tina placed her hands on her head, and the deputy cuffed her right hand, pulled it behind her and cuffed the left one. She then patted her down. "Gun," she said as she ran her hands down her back. She pulled a rubber glove out of her pocket and pulled out the pistol with the glove. Tina realized what had happened. She had forgotten all about the gun in her waistband when she entered the building. "That's not mine. I brought that to give to Agent Baxter from CBI." The deputy at the desk put his pistol back into his holster, dialed a number and spoke with someone on the phone. While he was talking, the other deputies checked the boys for weapons and then had them sit in the visitors' chairs. Tina was helped up and placed in one of the chairs. The side door opened, and a tall black sergeant walked through the door. He stepped up to Tina. "Ma'am, I'm Sergeant Reed. You told these deputies that you were bringing the pistol to Agent Baxter. May I ask what this is all about?" Tina composed herself. "My name is Christina Welker. You guys arrested my husband earlier and I have information and that gun for Agent Baxter." Reed looked at the growing bruise on the side of Tina's face, then recognized her. "We met yesterday at the Velasquez home, did we not?" Tina looked at him. "Yes, you were with Agent Baxter when she came to tell us that my brother had been killed." Reed smiled. "Ma'am, who hit you and why were you armed?" "I'm sorry, Sergeant, I forgot I had the gun. I took that out of my sister's purse. I think it's the gun that killed my brother. I also have a thumb drive for Agent Baxter." "Deputy, please uncuff Mrs. Welker," said Reed. "Mrs. Welker, please follow me." "Deputy, why don't you take the boys to the lunchroom and see if you can find a couple of soft drinks and maybe some snacks." He held open the door, took the pistol and the glove and led them through it. The deputy and the boys turned right, and Tina followed Reed to a small conference room, and he asked her if he could get her anything to drink. She told him that a black coffee would be great, and he stepped out of the room and closed the door. He pulled out his phone, looked at his contacts and dialed a number. "Sergeant, what's up?" asked Bax. "Hope I didn't wake you, but Tina Welker just walked through the door with a thumb drive and a silenced pistol and asked to see you." Bax was now wide awake. "Okay, we'll be there in 15 minutes. She disconnected the call, and Reed put his phone away and went in search of a fresh pot of coffee. It had been a strange night, and as morning approached, it had gotten stranger. 20 minutes later, Bax and Paul walked through the front doors of the sheriff's office and were buzzed through to the back. They found Sergeant Reed and Tina Welker sitting in a conference room. They walked in and dropped their backpacks on the floor. Bax looked at Tina. "Mrs. Welker, what happened to your face?" "Gabby punched me," said Tina, speaking in a whisper. Bax pulled out a chair and sat opposite her. "Why?" "She got drunk. I accused her of getting Peter involved in the rock slide thing. Then I accused her of killing Ramon and Dutch, and she lost her temper and hit me. Reed slid 2 evidence bags over to Bax. She picked up the first one, opened the bag and looked at the thumb drive. She held it up in front of Tina. I was mad, so after she passed out, I went into Ramon's office and got into his laptop. I copied several files that I think might implicate my brother and sister in the explosion that caused the rock slide. Bax slid the drive over to Paul, who opened his laptop and plugged it in. She picked up the second bag and looked at the silenced pistol. Tina, want to tell me about the pistol? I found that in my sister's shoulder bag. She had dropped it in the hallway outside her room, and I looked in it, hoping I might find her laptop. I found the gun instead. And you think she used this to kill Dutch Heinrich and your brother? Yeah. She's crazy, and she practically admitted blowing up the canyon over some mineral find. I couldn't believe what she was saying until I got into Ramon's laptop. Then I got scared, took the gun and the files and raced here with my sons. I'm afraid of what she'll do when she realizes we've gone. Tears flowed down her cheeks. Bax stood and signaled for Reed to follow her, and they stepped into the hallway and closed the door. You think she's legit? Asked Reed. She seems scared, and that bruise. I doubt she did it to herself. I'm worried though that as evidence we may be in a bad place, since we have no way of proving the provenance of the gun and the drive. I tried to call Buck but his phone went straight to voicemail. Reed looked surprised. You hadn't heard. Buck was involved in a shootout up on Cottonwood Pass tonight. I guess he was meeting the wife of that geologist who was murdered, but someone forced her off the road. The guy beat her to a pulp. Buck got into a shootout with the guy and killed him. Sheriff said they should be here shortly, so Buck can give a formal statement. Ada Garvey and the State Patrol shooting investigator are on their way. The door opened, and Ada Janine Garvey walked in and shook hands with Bax and Reed. She looked at them with a curious expression. Why are you here? She asked. Bax filled her in and explained about the thumb drive and the gun. I was going to call you. I need a read on the legality of the drive and pistol as evidence. She smiled. You state guys sure lead interesting lives. Let's go talk to Mrs. Welker. She followed Bax and Reed back into the conference room and introduced herself to Tina. She sat opposite her, pulled a small digital recorder out of her shoulder bag, and had her repeat everything she had told Bax earlier. She asked her where she found the items in question, and she asked her about the title to the house. The house is in a trust. The 3 of us are named in the trust, and if something were to happen to one of us, the other 2 retain ownership through the trust. Okay, said Janine. So, with the death of your brother, you and your sister share ownership through the trust, correct? Tina nodded and said, yes. That's how our father wanted it set up. We all share everything equally, the house, the ranch, almost everything. Ramon got 70% of the business, and Gabby got 30%. With his death, the business goes to the remaining siblings, 50-50. Bax looked over at Paul, who was clicking on the keys. Paul, anything good? She asked. He slid his laptop over to her, and Bax advanced the images so she and Janine could look at them. After a while they sat back and looked at Paul. There's a lot of information there, not enough to make a case against Gabriela Velasquez, but I can work with this. Since Mrs. Welker is part owner of the house, and with her brother's death, she technically has access to everything in the house that belonged to her brother. I think we are okay on the drive. The gun might be harder since it was in Ms. Velasquez's bag, but Mrs. Welker will testify that the bag was in a common hallway, where there is no expectation of privacy. It's something we'll let a judge decide on. We need to confirm that this is the gun that was used to kill Mr. Heinrich.
Thank you for listening to this
Bax
chapter
picked
of
up the
Crime
evidence
Unraveled,
bag
a
containing
Buck
the
Taylor
pistol
novel by
and
Chuck
stepped
Morgan.
out of the conference room.
You can find the
She
entire
just
crime
pulled her phone
series
out
as
of her
well as
back
other
pocket
novels by
when Buck
Chuck
and
Morgan
Sheriff
at
Weaver walked through the door,
chuckmorganbooks.com or
followed
on
by the
Amazon.
State Patrol shooting investigator. Buck was on his phone. She stepped in front of him. You okay? She asked. Hold on, sir, said Buck into the phone. Bax is here. He turned to Bax. I'm fine, he said. What are you doing here? Long story? Is that the director on the phone? Buck nodded, and she held up her hand and Buck handed her the phone. "Sir, can you get the chopper up here as soon as possible? I need to get a piece of evidence to the state lab fast." "I can," said the director. "They're still in Grand Junction. Let me make a call, and I'll call Buck back." She returned the phone to Buck and explained what had been happening while he was up on the pass. Buck pulled an evidence bag from his pocket containing another thumb drive and handed it to her. "Mrs. Woodman almost died and may still to get this to us. Her husband told her it works in conjunction with his laptop. No idea what the hell that means, but see if Paul can figure it out. I'm gonna be tied up with the shooting investigator for a while. Nail down Mrs. Welker's interview, and if you think you can use the information, get her husband back in here and let's see if you can break through his fears." She nodded and headed towards the conference room, and Buck followed the State Patrol investigator into one of the interrogation rooms and shut the door.
Thank you for listening to this chapter of Crime Unraveled, a Buck Taylor novel by Chuck Morgan. You can find the entire crime series as well as other novels by Chuck Morgan at chuckmorganbooks.com or on Amazon.